Well, we're live, Jesse, for a point five show.
All right.
So, time to talk geocache. Time for geocache talk, special edition, a point five show. Whether you're at work, in the car, or wherever you are, we hope you enjoy this point five show. If I don't quit stumbling over my words, please give it a like and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, TuneIn Radio, or Google Play, so you get all the weekly geocache talk goodness. Let's just start by saying it is September 5th, and this is show 65.5.
0.5.
And Jesse and I, Sydney was not available, but Jesse and I are going to talk about the guidelines that just came out today.
So it's causing a big stir on social media, so we thought we'd jump in and look at them ourselves.
Yes.
And really, it's not a huge change, but there are some minor changes that will probably cause some confusion. So we're going to get...
They will.
So, of course, we're going to jump in and help create more confusion, and then we'll go get some real answers.
Of course. I got to get the... Did you get the... I got to pull up the chat room.
I don't have it pulled up on this one now.
I'm pulling it up on mine,
okay.
So we'll have that. So just be a moment. One momento. And we'll have that pulled up.
So I think we should title this Mary Hyde Part 2.
Yeah, we should. Okay, now
that's right.
For one of the rules, yep. Ravenclaw Tia's on, Ed Shaper's on, so we got people.
Okay. Have they seen information about the new rules yet?
I guess so. They're starting to talk about it. Mel Stowe's on. Hey, Mel. Good to have you.
Trying to get the chat room pulled up as well.
She's one of our new patrons. So
all right.
Thanks so much for getting on. And Cece says, hope it's good news. No more LPCs. No, they're still around. Cece, sorry about that. They're still available. But there are some interesting things in here that Jesse and I have found. We're going to talk through them, and most of it I think is what we've already. Jesse and I said we're going through them, looking at them, and we found a couple things. What was some of them that stood out to you so far, Jesse?
So I think one of the interesting things, I don't even know what the implications of it could be yet, but they kind of opened up one of the cardinal rules of geocaching, which was outside of Mingo, because it's grandfathered, you can't bury a geocache. And that's what we're joking about, the Mary Hyde Part 2, since that was all pirate themed and stuff. Yeah. Now apparently you can bury a geocache with permission of the landowner.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
So we need to, Jesse, you and I need to open up like a little bed and breakfast somewhere there in Colorado with a big field. We'll just bury something. It didn't say how deep, we could bury it down 30 feet or something. All right, y'all go try to find that geocache now. And when you're done, you're really tired, come back in and we'll sell you, dinner and drinks or something.
Or we'll rent shovels.
Right, of course.
Well, I mean, it brings up something interesting because they were pretty specific about saying with specific permission of the landowner. However, like we were talking about before this, they also talk about how you're supposed to have permission on public property in the guidelines.
Yep.
And I don't think that's new. They just made it easier to find, like you said. But people don't do that, right? When's the last time somebody went and got permission for an LPC? They don't.
Right. They don't.
Or their city public park. They don't get permission. They just go and hide it. So I guess the real litmus test is going to be, do people get permission before they bury something a couple feet down? So now people are digging through the city park or whatever.
And claim that they have permission, but they really never did go get permission.
I mean, you can see how that could go poorly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why, at least for Susan and I, we always look for public locations for caches. I mean, we have a couple places. We have a vet clinic. We got permission to put something on their property, but it is interesting. They went through and added a couple of items in there, but yeah, why would they even put that in there? Why are we allowing people to bury caches? I mean,
I don't know.
I
That's
don't,
and now maybe that's burying part of the container where you're putting a rock on top of it and you have an indentation
yeah,
in the ground. Maybe that's why
yeah,
they're loosening that up a little bit. I'm sure the reviewers got prepped on that too. So
sure, yeah,
I can't
because
think of any initial places where I'd want to bury a geocache.
right,
It's just been so ingrained since, at least since I've been in the game, that you can't bury a cache that it's hard for me to think that way.
yeah, because even like I don't consider Mingo buried, although it is in the ground.
What?
But
That is buried. What are you talking about? It's a can in
well,
the ground, in
it
a
is,
hole in the ground.
but the hole is
They made
it's
the
not.
hole for that flamingo.
Well, I know, but when I think buried in such a way that you can't see it.
Like you have to use a shovel and dig it
Yeah,
up like a
you have no
part.
idea where. Yeah, you can't see any part of it, which means to me that's like true buried treasure. You don't see the
Yeah.
top of it, and so. But anyway, okay. What are some other ones that stood out?
Um. So for me, and you have more of the wording, I think, on this one, but
Hmm.
essentially, if you don't maintain your caches, you could lose your hiding privileges.
Yeah, let me find that note because I think that is very interesting. So
And I'm sure this is going to be one of the hot topic ones, right?
yeah, it should be. I
Because
would think.
I'm sure somebody's going to say, "Well, if anybody puts a maintenance on my on my cache, does that mean that I'm going to lose my?" No, I'm sure they're going to use that for an extreme case, right? People put out 1,000 caches and 200 of them show needs maintenance.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Got to be.
and I'm all in favor of that. Non-maintain or terribly maintained caches do not do anything positive for the game.
Exactly. All they do is take up a space, and then it takes longer for people to.
So I like
If,
that rule.
yeah, I do too, and especially for consistent violators of this rule.
Mm-hmm.
We know people that they go through parts of Texas and they do little. They almost throw them out the window. I mean, that's
Right.
really all. I mean, you talk about a real throwdown. I mean, drive slowly and chunk it out the window. That's not. That's not good. And
Well,
if people
plus,
consistently do that, they need to be banned. I mean,
how many people do you have out there that found 5 caches and decided to hide one and then never liked the game after that and have never been back on?
yeah,
How
that's the
many
truth.
dormant accounts have caches? So this could be a good step in that direction.
No, I agree.
Um,
What about?
Tim
Yep.
said expects others to maintain their. That happens a lot because people expect others to maintain their caches.
Right.
Well, hopefully
Right.
this will clean that up, right? I'd go a step
Yeah.
further and say if they haven't been active for a year, it either goes up for adoption or gets archived.
I love that idea. I
So it's
do.
not just that fire and forget. We
Yep.
reached 3 million. That was great, but now maybe it looks like they're focusing on quality now, which you know we're the
Yep.
first ones to, or I am anyway, to express my displeasure when they do something wrong. But I
Hmm.
think this one is something right. So
Yep.
I like
No,
that
we.
rule a lot.
Yep. We agree. One of the reasons why we came on tonight is to really some of the stuff we definitely are praising. Some of it though, we're scratching our head about. One of them is interesting. I don't think I have any like this, but what do you think about this one, Jesse? The container can no longer cannot double as a logbook.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I've seen some caches out there that not necessarily flat packs because those usually have a log in them. But
Hmm.
sometimes when they make a weird creative container and you're supposed to sign the inside of the container or do
Right.
something like that, I think that's kind of neat. But I'm sure there's probably instances where people are writing on the containers instead of, they're not getting, like in a gadget cache, they're not getting to what they need to get to.
Hmm.
Um, or, oh, Tim just brought up something. What about those magnetic number things, like on the electric boxes?
Hmm.
How about that? So
Oh.
those flat magnets with the paper on the
Oh
back,
yeah.
the rules
That's
say it's got to contain it, right?
yeah.
Magnetic
Well,
strips.
yeah. Now I've seen where there is a logbook underneath those magnetic things, so
But
it's
if it's like
separate.
those flat magnets,
Hmm.
like on the side of something, and then a piece of paper on the backside that's got the waterproof log,
Oh, right.
would that
Right. It's
count?
part of it. Yeah, and technically by the rules, it's obviously it's up to the reviewers because the reviewers,
Right.
as you and I both know, the reviewers run, which is fine. I don't mind that.
Hmm.
But I've seen where where reviewers will they have to interpret the guidelines, and if they interpret it a certain way, we'd have to appeal to geocaching.com for.
So I've hidden some of those before,
Mhm.
where it's the magnet that's printed up to look like the surroundings on the front, and then the backside it's got a waterproof log affixed
Connected
to
to
it.
it.
So I'm gonna have to find out if that's rules or
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
Yeah, like on
uh,
electrical boxes or things like that in town.
yeah. Now, some
Interesting.
of the things we've seen so far are things we already knew, and I don't know if they just. I think for the most part, many of these things were just um, reworded
Hmm.
because "don't hide caches far from home." I mean, we knew that, but I think that they probably rewrote that a little bit.
Yeah, and that it does say with exception. Some exceptions
Yep.
can be made for that.
Yep.
Um, with maintenance plans, and that still doesn't apply to virtuals or earth caches
Right.
because there are no physical containers to maintain.
Right.
Um, I guess another one I saw in there too, like you're just saying that
Yeah.
I don't know if
Scratching
it
your
was in
head
there
out.
before or if they
Yeah.
just cleaned it up. And I like how they've cleaned it up too. But
Mhm.
it says that they recommend that you find 20 caches before you hide one,
I like
and the
that.
more variety, the better. I don't know if that was in there before or not. It's still not a
No.
rule, but it seems like it's a recommendation. And we've all talked about that one before. How many should you find before you hide?
Yep.
That's pretty interesting. I know that's not enforceable yet, but
I like where they're going with it, though.
yeah.
I like that a lot. I think it's you and I have talked about it. It should be like favorite points. I mean, if you would almost have to find legitimate. Well, of course, there's no way to legitimately, but you have to sign a certain number, and then you're allowed to hide your first cache. So I like that they have this sort of the guidelines, not
Oh,
fully yet, but
in the chat room, they said in a couple different places. I think Tim. Let's see. No, hold on. Ed and somebody else. I'm trying to see where it was. It scrolled on me that some of the reviewers. Tim. It was Tim was the other one. Some of the
mhm.
reviewers have already rejected some of those magnet log combinations.
Oh, really interesting.
So maybe they
Hmm.
kind of knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Well, here's the interesting thing. It did say too, and I noticed the reviewers asked me this recently. They asked what the container was.
Oh,
I've never had that in the past, but that's a new part of the thing. You're supposed to
yeah.
tell your reviewer when you submit it now. If it was before, I just didn't realize it. What kind of container and how you open the container. So
Yeah, that seemed like I always put that in my reviewer note, which I know they put that on there too. I assume. I mean, again, I think there's some stuff that you and I probably did, and most people do. We just sort of took it for granted. But I always put what the cache was, or I try to give enough information to the reviewer so they can publish it. But
yeah, I say I never thought the cache container was part of that.
right,
What do they care, right?
yeah, I always kind of put it. I guess me personally, I would put it just as trying to let them know kind of what I was thinking or what it is, so that so you could know that that's acceptable.
We're gonna have to do
So
an in-depth show on the rules one day.
yeah,
Really
probably need to.
sit there and go through them because I've read them several times, but there's a
Oh yeah.
lot to it.
So here's another one that we saw today that was a real head scratcher. Was the new rules about events.
Mm.
So what stood out to you, or the first thing you noticed about events?
So I think we're going to have to get clarification on this one
Yeah.
because I think this has got a few people. So one of the things that I like to do and other people like to do is when they travel, they'll host events in an area and get to go meet the local cachers or set up for them to do it. Well, one of the big things people do is do that on a cruise ship. So one of
Yep.
the new rules says events cannot be near transportation centers, airports, cruise ship ports. Um, that was the main one we're talking about. So
Yep.
does that mean that all those cruise ship events where they're at ports are no longer good, or there's maybe a distance outside of the port, or I don't know. But I mean, those happen. If you look up the map anywhere remote that cruise ships go, there's always events there.
Yeah, and if you open up I open up the actual guidelines page, and that's all it says. Is it says event location. Events cannot be held in or near transportation centers such as airports, cruise ship ports, or train stations. And
So
I'm
what's
like,
near?
yeah, what is it? What is the definition of near?
Is
That's
it
always a
528 feet? Like stages, like
I
couches?
really, but I don't I don't understand, and that's something we maybe like you said we'll try to have to get clarification on. But
Yeah.
why? What's who cares?
So in airports, I absolutely understand that. There's a
Because
security
of
risk, right? Yeah.
right. Well, and
Everything's suspicious in there. And hey, we're going to bring a bunch of ammo cans or packages. Or, no, we're not
yeah,
doing any of that. Um, transportation centers in general. So those are, high visible targets for any kind of nefarious activity, right? So
yeah,
that
that's
makes
true.
sense. But a cruise ship is kind of, you're off, once you're off the cruise ship, you're not going to be right next to the boat. So I don't know if they're just considering that dangerous
Right.
as well or what.
That's
And how far away do you need to have it just in town? Because
good.
I think people will still
Good
have
point.
them. People on cruise ships are still going to have events. They'll just have to have it, a mile away or whatever the distance is they set.
Right. Well, and this is kind of bad. We probably need to get the land sharks on at some point as well and talk about.
Yeah.
But now you can't because I think they used to have event. I don't know if they did though. Where they did you could you not previously hold an event on a cruise ship? Was
No,
that
you
considered?
cannot because it's not open to the general public.
Okay, and that's probably why, like airports, you could technically, I guess, get to part of an airport, but you can't get to inside of it.
Yeah.
Well,
But I can
I,
absolutely see why they wouldn't want you congregating around in there.
yeah,
You look, you know,
that is would be weird.
but I mean, outside is a secure area, but I don't have any problem with that rule at all. Not at airports, not at train stations, not anything weird like that that's going to draw negative attention to people. Because a minimum of 30 minutes, you have to stay there, right?
Yeah,
So that can be kind of funky, I can see.
yeah. Some of these I think people knew about, but maybe they just didn't realize. Any event cache can be logged online if the geocacher has physically attended that event, and
Mm-hmm.
also that you do not have to require a logbook, which I think way back in the old days you had to have you had to have a logbook for an event, right?
If I've heard right, the reason why that changed is people were hiding or locking up the logbooks, and you had to solve something to get into it,
Oh,
and they didn't want that anymore. So now they're not required. And I've hosted one or two or 100 events, and
yes, you have.
I think I'm actually at 100 now. But on our local events where we do a coffee event where we just meet all the time, we don't even do a log because it's the same people, in and out,
Yep.
with exceptions. But if we're doing a special event, then we do. But like our regular events that we have over and over, there's no point in having a logbook. It
No,
doesn't go
no.
anywhere. So
Right. Also, we try to figure out some of these new cache requirements. And one, of course, that I sent to you before we started the meeting, the podcast was where I go.
oh, so before I blow a gasket, um,
We're gonna find out.
this is one we need and some interpretation on. And I'm pretty sure that it means something different than what it looks like. But what it looks like to me is where I goes. They're talking about the pin has to be where the starting location is, with a few exceptions. But kind of the way it's written, and then it says that, and then it says at the bottom that essentially it looks like the starting location and the final have to be within 2 miles. Surely that is not what we're saying.
Well, I don't know.
I'm hoping not, because I would absolutely have some in violation of that. The one we were speaking about is one of the where I goes that I have. You start at a parking lot, hike up to one 14er, hike over to another 14er, and then hike to the final. But according to this, if that's the way it reads, which surely no way, right? Then you couldn't have a 2.1 mile long hike with a where I go.
Right.
No way. There's no way they would limit them like that.
Apparently
When one of the rules, that would mean
Yeah.
because we've gone over the terrain, right? And one of the things is over a 2 mile hike. So you can never have one over a certain distance. There's no way that can be what that means.
Yeah. Well, at least with the exceptions, I think they're very clear that they don't want the exceptions to have over a 2 mile hike, which I don't understand what the deal is with 2 miles. But so if you did a reverse where I go, you couldn't start well, no, I'm trying to think how you.
So I think what they're trying to say is they don't want people falsifying distances for trackables, because
Right.
that's where you move trackables in and out. They want them generally within 2 miles. Like you wouldn't want to start like a puzzle. The puzzle starts in your town, but the final's actually in my town,
Yeah.
in Texas to Colorado. That would be silly, and it would just mess up trackables, right?
Yeah.
But surely they're not saying that we can't have any more hikes over 2 miles. I can't
Right.
even begin to believe that's how that is interpreted.
Are they trying to limit the fact that if somebody goes through where I go and they finish it, they get to the final, and you know how it is, the final stage of where I go gives you the final coordinates. They don't want you to, from that point, have something 2 miles further than 2 miles away. Is that what you're interpreting that as, or
I could see that. That would be individual stages, right? So like you get to stage 4 and it says, "Oh, you made it. Now go 50 miles from here."
Yeah.
But I think that would be worded as individual stages. I think they're talking about from pin. I'm sorry.
Final.
It looks like they're talking about from pin to final, but I can't believe that's what they're intending.
Right.
Because in hiking, there's tons of multis and letterboxes and all kinds of stuff that are more than 2 miles long.
Right.
So I think they're just talking about some kind of offset, and we're kind of looking at it and not figuring out what they're talking about. But that's why we need that interpretation, right?
Yeah.
Somebody said, "What about gas station tuna?" I love that name. What about flash events? I didn't see anything in there. Those have been out for a long time.
Yeah, I read through the events. Yeah, I went through the guidelines, gas station tuna, and it's kind of the same way it was. It has to be 30 minutes long for the event. It has to occur
for a regular event.
For a regular event.
An hour-long minimum for CETO.
Minimum of 30 still. And and CETO is still the same. Yep.
Now, it did say, and I want to dig into this a little bit more. It did say that they encourage partnerships with outside groups for CETOs. Yes, they just need to sign some paperwork. And I didn't get to drill into that yet, but I think that's good because, a lot of times when we're partnered with a park, they'll bring another group in too. And before that could kind of limit where we're able to contribute. So hopefully that's what the details of that one say.
Yep. I agree. They've added text to make it clear that Geocaching HQ may make exceptions to the commercial guidelines for geotours and trackable promotions. And to me, that's pretty standard. We assume that they can do whatever they want to do as far as that's concerned. So
one of the coolest things they've done recently was the ape cache, right? And that goes against the rules. So we're very happy they did that.
Yeah.
They just did the promotion about bringing the virtuals out. I don't think anybody's complaining about that.
No.
Well, the holder of all the keys gets to make the rules, whatever that thing is.
Yes.
They should be able to bend the rules for what they want because it's headquarters. They're not a player. They're headquarters.
Yeah. And the thing to always remember is we're talking about geocaching.com geocaching. If one day down the road somebody else comes along, because geocaching by itself is not just ground speak. I mean, there are.
Yeah, we're only talking about ground speak, even though it's geocaching.com.
Yeah,
we're not talking about any other promotions or organizations.
Yeah, they can do what they want. So
yeah. I think that's always assumed, but I guess we should say that every once in a while.
Yeah, I guess we should, because who knows? One day, there may be another entity out there, and we'll have to kind of refer to both. Are you going after a geocaching.com geocache, or are you going after the REI geocache, or whoever comes along? So,
and like when we say letterboxes, we're talking about letterbox hybrids.
That's true.
Because I just met some people this weekend, and they recognized the trackable on my leg, and I asked them if they'd been out geocaching. They said they were out letterboxing. I was like, wow, I don't meet too many people that actually letterbox. So
that's all. That's completely separate.
So there are some other things out there, but what do you think about these rules so far?
So far, two things. One is a lot of these things are just, I think, reworded a little bit to clarify, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And some of these other ones I really like. So far, all of my rereading of the guidelines, I'm all for these. So far so good, except for the head scratchers.
We'll get answers to those though.
We will, but I don't understand, and there's obviously a reason. We need to find out the reason why they picked, why they that gave cruise ships such a bad name.
Yeah, and I think there's something more to that.
Probably so. Or the
Or
bearing. Yeah.
we need to get a distance. What does near mean?
Yeah.
Is there a 5-mile radius that you have to do it outside? Because people are going to do this. They're absolutely going to host events, or arrange for them to be hosted near somewhere they're traveling brand new.
Yep.
I do think it's interesting. I do think they've reworded the part about hiding on public lands.
Yep.
I'm hoping that they're going to start tightening up getting permission even in public areas.
Right.
Like lampposts and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That's not public. That's Walmart.
Right. They own that.
And I've been stopped. We talked about my law enforcement account. I only got one, but people get stopped for that thing, and that, they even mentioned geolitter in the rules, which are in the blog, which I was super happy about that. They're trying to cut down on geolitter and promote quality. This, with the virtuals or history caches, whatever you want to call them, that just came back out, and some of the other things they've been doing, like that little competition they tried out, these are, actually big things. They've done a lot of big things lately. So in a sport that's been kind of stagnant for a long time, it's kind of exciting that they've done 2 or 3 big things recently. Ape Cache, that's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I like where things are going. I mean,
Gas Station Tuna just brought up that this year's Geocoin Fest is actually on a cruise ship.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's on the Queen Mary. Whoops.
Oops. But you know what? It's grandfathered in.
Yeah, that's right. These are rules that just start today. So
that's funny. I guess that cruise ship is docked for the whole part of the event. True. So it's not at sea. It has to be, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it ever goes anywhere. Queen Mary doesn't travel anywhere.
Oh, okay. Anymore. So I wonder if it's just a considered stationary at this point.
Yeah, it's not a.
That's still funny though.
It is. That's hysterical. All right. Are we wrapping this up?
I think so. I think we just want to jump on, see if some people in the chat room had some questions and stuff. And I can't type back in the chat room, so for those of y'all, I just can't answer you. I think it's exciting that they're doing this, and before anybody freaks out, like we've seen some of this stuff on social media, I think dig into it, read the rules, which we always say. Read the rules, find out what the rules are for the game that we're doing, and we'll try to get some follow-up from headquarters and clarification on a couple of these odd things that we don't quite understand yet.
Yep, I agree.
And everybody go bury a geocache.
Exactly. Now that we can go bury one with permission from the owner.
With permission, but how deep?
Yeah, I'm going out my front yard. I'm going to bury a cache, so y'all come find it.
That's right. So all in all, I think we just want to jump on real quick because it's some exciting new stuff. They're doing a lot of exciting things lately. So hopefully by this weekend, we'll have some more answers, or soon we'll have some more answers.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about this a little bit during the news section of our show on 8 p.m. this Sunday with Fuzzy B. We're going to talk about the Mother's Challenge. There's the whole that things have to be grandfathered in now because it's there's a lot of things about that one that's cool, but I don't think you can do some of the things anymore.
Absolutely.
With that cache, but it's fascinating. The week after that, we're having on Dan Hunsick. He's the Cache Me If You Can game person, so we're going to talk about that game. It's interesting. And then, of course, in 3 weeks, Shanice Jordan, our other next treasure actor, she was Sierra in the movie. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed this, Jesse, but Treasure won another award.
I saw that
for independent films. It won another one. So hats off to Treasure for their they're cranking in the awards now. They're gathering them up. So
I think we're going to have to do a contest with a trivia question from Treasure.
Yeah, that's what we got to do. Absolutely. Well, and that that could be what we use to give away this copy of Treasure.
There you go.
Right there. We're gonna give that away in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned when we have Shanice on. We'll
forgot
give
all
away
about
this
that.
Blu-ray. I know, that's awesome. So we got some other stuff we need to give away too. We're gonna be doing over the next few weeks. So stay tuned. Shovel, yeah, we're gonna give away shovels. That's it's gonna be awesome. So all right, well, we hope you enjoyed this 0.5 show tonight. Email us your comments, and we've gotten a lot of good comments lately. So thank you so much to people for emailing us at geocachetalk@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Geocache Talk. I'm at Gary Slinkard. Jesse's at Memphis_Mafia, and Sydney's at Shermanator GC. And our Facebook is facebook.com/Geocache Talk. Show can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, as well as the Geocache Talk website. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button below so that you can see and hear the show on a weekly basis. Until next week, or until Sunday, don't just talk about geocaching. Follow the new rules and go geocaching. Good night, everybody.
Good night.